Hi, my name is Abhishek. In this video, I'll talk about how to activate SAP S/4HANA best practices. We'll do this on 1610. On the content page, you see we have Introduction to SAP S/4HANA, Software Requirements, Scope, Landscape, Steps for Configuration, and Issues and Resolutions. Introduction to S/4HANA. So after a great success with the on-premise edition on 15.11, SAP has released SAP S/4HANA 16.10 on the 31st of October 2016. SAP S/4HANA was designed to enable businesses to both master the challenges and leverage the benefits of the digitalization for businesses. Built on the SAP HANA platform, SAP S/4HANA has the power to significantly accelerate the speed of both transactional and analytics performance and radically reduce an organization's data footprint. Major innovation that was released in 1610 is the newly launched SAP S/4HANA on-premise page on sap.com. You can see www.sap.com/S4HANA S4 on-premise release. This page would give you the information about the new changes that are done on S4HANA, the new innovations that have been made on S4HANA 1610 release. With the SAP best practice for SAP S4HANA are the tailored specifically to accelerate and simplify the adaptation of SAP S/4HANA on-premise edition for faster time to value by providing pre-configured content for core business processes with role-specific, responsive, and simple user experience. So with that being said, you would have the tailored configuration where you can use the industry-specific solutions for your customers. The guided configuration allows a simpler configuration. So as I said, it would give you the automated testing, it would give you the lifecycle management to support the agile adaptation of the continuous innovation, that too even after the go live. With all these new features, you can use S/4HANA in your on-premise edition with a lot of new business functionalities. There are business benefits that you can see: reduction of cost, you can empower your business, you can use the update and change customer specific configuration using your S/4HANA lifecycle tool, and you get a first-hand experience on the S/4HANA. The instant guide trial gives you the detailed explanation on that. When you're trying to implement SAP S/4HANA 1610 edition, you have to make sure that these prerequisites and the software requirements are met. When you implement S/4HANA 1610, you would have an SAP server which would have your S/4HANA 1610 on-premise edition. You can define which FPS pack you would like to use. As of now, as of May, you have FPS 2 available. You would need SAP Solution Manager with the latest pack. 7.2 is recommended as it syncs in a great way when you use your S/4HANA with your Solution Manager 7.2. As you also know that 7.1 would no more be in maintenance scope after this at the end of 2017. So we would suggest that you always use SAP Solution Manager 7.2 and always on the latest service support pack. You would need a front-end server for your SAP NetViewer that would be on 7.51, and that would be on a back stack that would have your Fury as a front end. You could also call it as gateway. You see these components here. Along with that, you would need a SAP web dispatcher which would act as a reverse proxy in your landscape, which would help you to provide a better optimized value when you're getting the incoming request and when you're in public. With that, you would also require SAP Business Object Analysis. This would be helping you with the business objects which you would be dealing. That's an add-on. Also, you would require an ADS server. You can connect to any of the Java system and connect your ADS server to your S4HANA, which would require. That includes your all the PDF views that you would be doing. Those would be stored under ADS. Also, that includes your BRF Plus configuration as well. So, recommended ADS server should already be in place when you're trying to implement S4HANA. There's a lot of scope. Like I said before, you would have the industry specific solutions that you see. You see the streamlined way that they have designed with the core industry, with the core enterprise priorities, with the analytical content and the migration content. You have a lot of scope to activate all of your business practices on your 1610. You also have to make sure that you have the spare license agreements with that. Roadmap for SAP S4HANA. As I said earlier, right now we have FPS2, which is available as of today, which is in May 2017. We would request you to have FPS02, and on the 31st of October we see that SAP S4HANA 1610 initial shipment pack was released, and on the 22nd of February 2017 you can see that FPS01 was released. So it's always recommended that you stay on the latest FPS level so that you get all the enhancement, all the modifications, all the changes, the bugs are fixed in that. And later you would see the continuous innovations with SAP S4HANA that would be along 1709. That would come late this year. That's about the roadmaps. Moving on to the system landscape. In the system landscape, when you plan to build S4HANA on-premise edition for your best practice, starting with I would start with the bottom where you would install your SAP HANA database. On top of that, you would be deploying your SAP HANA ABAP stack. That would be for your S4HANA. This would be connected, like I said earlier, this would be connected to your ADS server. And then you would install your central hub for your Fiori. Central hub is always recommended, as you can maintain and manage your UI components separately, which would not have any effect on your backend system, and that's why it's much more easier to manage your central hub. You would install a NetWeaver 7.5 and 7.51 ABAP stack. On top of that, you would be deploying the related components for your UI that would be supporting your S4HANA 1610, and on that you would also have the SAP gateway, which would be connected. So ABAP Fiori front-end server, which is also called as your SAP gateway server, would be connected to your backend 1610 using a trusted RFC. And then indeed this would be connected to your web dispatcher, as you would be going live on public, and you would require the web dispatcher to act as a reverse proxy, which would also pass your HTTPS and HTML requests or your OData services from your web dispatcher. That's about the system landscape. Moving ahead, next, activating best practices. For activating best practices, I would recommend you to use the administration guide, which is available on support.sap.com for your best practice 1610. You would have it for all the support packs, starting with your initial shipment pack. You can go till FPS1, FPS2. You have different admin guide, which would guide you through the stepwise configuration with that. While you're activating best practice on 1610, I would request you go through these two notes, which are used for the content activation and which are for the notes for your SAP best practice on-premise edition. This would describe you, this picture that you see on the screen would show you the brief and process on how you would be activating your best practice. When you're activating your best practice, you have to create the best practice client, and you will have to do a whitelisting using your 000 client. That would be done by filling the table /FTI/T_NOCLN_000. So that's the table that you would be filling, whitelisting it, and then you would be doing a client copy on an empty client using the configuration that you would like. You can use the UCAS, the profiles that you would want to use, you can use them. Once the new client is created, let's suppose, we'll assume that a new client name would be 100. Let's suppose I've created a new client, I've done a client copy using 000, using a whitelisting. I've created a new client 100. So in the client 100, following the notes as well as the administration guide, I would be activating the best practice content that can be done by using the transaction/SMB/BBI. So once those are done, client with respect to the configuration table filled from the SAP best practice content would be available after those are activated. So you would be activating the solution in the transaction SMB/BBI. That's the overview of activating the best practice. So when you see the steps of configuration, what you would see is you have two different servers. One is your S4HANA on-premise edition of your 1610, and the other one is for your Fiori. You see this screenshot, you should have your component match in the same way that you see on the screenshot. You will be activating the best practice on your backend system, that would be on your 1610 system. In my screen, you see that I am on FPS 01. Best practice implementation. So I have a couple of steps which you see on the screen, which would help you to prioritize when you're going to a best practice implementation. Before you start activation, carry out the technical steps. For content activation, ensure that you have installed the latest and the appropriate SAP front-end components. So when you activate your SAP best practice as a guided configuration, there are a lot of requirements which you would have when you're working on Fiori. The test scripts that you would be using, most of them would be working on Fiori. You also have to make sure that all the SAP notes which are recommended are implemented and are implemented with the latest versions. Executing the basic SAP Fiori configuration. Set up the Vertex integration. This is only applicable when you're using a US solution and you use Vertex for that. For that, you can see the note 2247743. Apart from the Vertex configuration, which is optional, you also have to consider that you configure system to connect to your SLD of your NetViewer. Create basic settings in the S4HANA backend system, which is your 1610. Create basic settings for using the Fiori Launchpad. Launchpad would be the first priority when you are releasing it to the consultants or the users who would be using. Launchpad is the first key step that has to be configured. Set up for SAP S4HANA attachment services. Set up the email change between the SAP system as well as the SMTP server. So when you would be using your best practice, you also need your SMTP server to be configured, the email exchange servers to be configured, attachment services to be configured appropriately. This is the list which I have prepared when I was implementing the solutions for the best practice, you can see, and use them for your later source. As you see that I've prepared the client, XXX would denote to the client number that you are going to use, and the import the reference content. In this importing the reference content, these would change as specific to your support pack. When you're using FPS 00, if you're using FPS 01, you will have to make sure that you download the latest content, which would be in your XML format, and then you would be uploading it before you activate your best practice solutions. So you have to make sure that the spam is checked. These are all the general steps which has to be configured, and you can use them for the later part when you are going to implement. As you see that Vertex, we have not implemented Vertex. We have used it as an optional, and in the later part, if you require, you can activate the Vertex configuration as well. And to get the most recent best practice content, as mentioned earlier, that if you're using the FPS, whatever the FPS patch that you're going to use, support pack level, you have to download the content from the node which is specified here, 2328518, as well as you can define and activate the scope of the solutions, and later to make sure that your cache is deleted, you have to use delete the metadata cache. You can do it using the SPRO, and This SAP note number 2348479 would give you the detailed description about how to activate your scope for your solutions. Now in this in this part of the video, I'll be showing you what are the issues that I've faced and what are the resolutions for that. So when you're trying to activate your best practices, when you're activating your solutions, sometimes you would face this issue. So in one of the steps, there is an option that you have to delete the language which is available on your S4HANA. So by default, there are 37 languages which are there, out of which only 2 are activated. That is Germany as well as English. So these 2 languages are activated in your system. However, you see the rest of the languages which are available, which is not required. So for that, there is a step in the administration guide. What you have to follow is you have to delete the language. That would be your Z language. And while I was deleting that, I was finding this issue that there is no language specific data which is there to be removed. So what I have done is, instead of doing this in my Z solution, there is a standard solution which is BP_OP_enterprise_S4HANA1611, because I'm on FPS 1 and _USB3. So I have deleted the same. So there is a report that you have to run, which you see here, that is SMB remove no install language image. So you have to remove that. So that in that step you have to remove it on your Z language. However, since I was facing this issue, I have removed it in the main solution and then copied it to the Z solution where the issue was fixed with that. Moving on to the next issue that I have faced, while activating the solution in SMB BBI, I forgot to activate one of the scope. So when I say I forgot to activate one of the scope, this is the industry specific activation that we have done. So for example, if you are activating any of the industry specific solution, for example process industry or discrete manufacturing, there is a list of scope items that you would be provided with, which you have to select and activate. So if you forgot that, not to worry about it, you can activate it again using the scope item that you want to do it, select and create another Z. So indeed it would not override anything because it's a specific scope item and you would have the solution right away. So you can copy a new solution and activate the selected scope items that were missed, right? So that is how you would be able to activate the scope item which you have missed earlier. The other issue that we have faced is error activating the ECAD. So while you're in the process of activating your best practice solutions, you face an issue sometimes where you see that the ECAD has an error. So what you do is that you have to get into the detail. You see the detail button over here, and you go into that and you would find the variant which has an issue. So what you would do is you have to right click onto that variant and do a restart. With that restart, you will have 2 options. One, to run it in the background, which is as is it is doing it on your solution activation. However, you would be selecting the other option, restart with the start screen. So in that start screen, you would know what error is available and you can correct that error right then and there on that screen and then reactivate it again. So restarting that would resolve the issues whatever you face in your ECAD. I would also request that you coordinate with your functional team to get to know more better knowledge on what has gone wrong while activating this. So these are a couple of common issues that you would be facing when you see a dump. You see a dump which is referring to an ABAP program, CLSWF run WIM local, which says that your workflow configuration is not made sure or it's not configured appropriately. So for that, I would request you to see the note 1834076, which would give you a detailed description on how to configure. You have to configure an RFC which would be locating to your workflow. So if you see the variant, you see that the workflow local 100 is not configured. So that way you have to configure a workflow RFC which would help you get rid of this error. The other dump that I've faced is with respect to the BOBF ABAP program, you can see, and this was because the output control is not made sure. So in S4HANA, you have a new technique or a technology which is used as a BRF plus. So the BRF plus needs to be configured, and you have to follow the stepwise guide. Do not miss any of the steps. There would be 4 steps that you would be seeing here for guiding. So there is a BRF configuration that has to be required. You also need to have a content repo, which would be your SOMU_DB, which would store all of your PDFs or any of the data which is stored locally. So you would need your ADS as well connected. So all the 4 steps which are mentioned in the note 2292571 has to be followed appropriately to get rid of this dump that you see. So that's all I have for this video. You can contact us on the provided information on the screen.